There are so many exciting space projects coming up in the next 2 years that it can be hard to keep track of them all. But at least one mission is so unique and ambitious that we are confident it will be the most exciting thing we see from human a space flight for the rest of this decade, and maybe the defining achievement of the 21st century. It is humanity's first ever mission to bring back samples from an object in the asteroid belt, and it has been in development for almost 2 decades now. This will not only answer some important questions about the early solar system, but it could help us defend Earth against future asteroids. And if everything goes right, the NASA Psyche mission will return to our planet in August 2033 with the first ever asteroid sample. Psyche is an S-type asteroid located between Mars and Jupiter and was discovered by the Italian astronomer Annibale de Gasparis back in 1862. Its official discovery was later credited to the French astronomer Jean Checarnac, who observed the asteroid independently 3 weeks later. At the time, it was thought to be an unremarkable chunk of rock, until astronomers noticed that it was reflecting much more sunlight than expected. This led to the hypothesis that Psyche is actually the exposed core of an early solar system, planetesimal that never got big enough to become a planet itself. This would make Psyche the first opportunity to study the insides of a world, without having to drill miles through rock or wait for one to crash into Earth. But there is another reason why scientists want to get their hands on this asteroid so badly. It's because its composition can tell us about the building blocks of planets. Psyche is around 220 miles across and shaped somewhat like an American football. But unlike any other rocky body in the solar system, it has no confirmed moons and very little surface texture. That last part makes sense if it really is just a giant metal ball. If you were to drop a pebble onto Psyche, it wouldn't bounce at all. It would just sink into the surface and vanish. There have been dozens of studies conducted on Psyche over the past few decades, but the asteroid still has a lot of unanswered questions. What does its surface look like close up? Is it pure iron? How dense is it? What kind of magnetic field does it have? Why is it spinning so fast? What is the origin story of this strange world? NASA's Psyche mission is hoping to answer these questions and more. The spacecraft is set to launch on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket in October 2024, which will take it out of Earth orbit and into a low-energy trajectory around the Sun. The goal is to use gravity-assist maneuvers around Mars and Venus to slowly accelerate the probe towards its destination in the asteroid belt. At this distance, communication with Earth becomes tricky due to how long it takes for signals to travel back and forth. So ground controllers won't be able to directly operate the spacecraft once it gets farther than Jupiter. Instead, Psyche has been designed with extensive onboard autonomy. If all goes well, then the spacecraft should reach the vicinity of Psyche in February 2030. But long before getting there, it will have to release a small companion probe called Thelander, which will separate from the main craft 24 days earlier. Psyche and the lander will enter orbit around the asteroid separately and then rendezvous in the asteroid's gravity. The lander will spend 7 days mapping Psyche's surface before touching down. During its 90-day surface mission, the lander will conduct experiments on the spot and collect samples from the top layer of soil and deposit them inside a special container. Then when the lander is almost out of power, it will launch its return ascent vehicle, which will leave the asteroid on a trajectory back to Earth. Meanwhile, the main Psyche spacecraft will continue orbiting the asteroid while conducting scientific experiments of its own. We'll also verify that the asteroid is safe to return to. After all, Psyche is about 300 million kilometers away from Earth at its closest approach. So we do want to know exactly what it's made of, or if there are any hazards that could damage the spacecraft. Once it confirms that Psyche is safe, it will fire its thrusters to join the ascent vehicle on its way back to Earth. The two probes will reunite in deep space, and the Psyche spacecraft will release the return stage for its final push towards Earth. Upon arrival, sample will be released into a capsule that will land via parachute in the Utah desert. By using the return stage, NASA was able to save weight on the lander while also ensuring that the sample would be brought back safely, even if something went wrong during the descent. Onboard both spacecraft will be a total of 4 instruments for remote sensing, including cameras, spectrometers, and a magnetometer. These tools will work together to give scientists a detailed picture of the asteroid's physical and chemical properties. We'll be able to see the shape of the asteroid and measure things like its density, porosity, color, and mineralogy.
Wow.
There will also be 2 small maskins that will measure the spacecraft's acceleration due to gravity as they pass over different parts of the surface. With this data, scientists can infer the distribution of mass within the asteroid and learn more about its internal structure. Now, there's one other piece of equipment that's probably going to steal the show, and that's the multi-use sample catching system, or MSCS. It's basically a big metal box with a drill attached that will bore into the asteroid and collect a sample of material. The drill will spin at 200 RPM and exert about 300 newtons of force, while it drills down 100 centimeters. Then it will retract to collect the sample. Scientists think that this should be enough to get a sample of solid rock, although they're not ruling out the possibility of collecting regolith either. Regolith is the loose dust and rocky debris that covers the surface of many celestial bodies. In this case, it would just be bits of metal that have been blasted off the asteroid's surface by meteor impacts. Regardless of what the drill collects, the sample will be deposited into a special container, where it can be stored during the cruise phase of the mission. After it reaches Earth, the container will be jettisoned, and the sample will be placed inside a specialized clean room facility for analysis. Scientists hope that this sample will help us understand more about the building blocks of planets, as well as the history of our solar system. In particular, studying the composition and texture of Psyche could help us better predict the composition of other asteroids. This is especially important considering that NASA believes there are hundreds of billions of asteroids in the inner solar system alone, many of which could potentially threaten Earth. By learning more about the materials that asteroids are made of, we could develop better strategies for deflecting them if we need to. NASA already has plans to test an asteroid deflection system in 2025 with its Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART mission. But DART will only be able to prove that a spacecraft can successfully collide with an asteroid and change its course. Psyche, on the other hand, could allow us to do something similar to what the European Space Agency did with the Philae probe during its Rosetta mission to Comet 67P. In 2014, Philae landed on the comet and deployed a harpoon drill to collect samples from beneath the surface. This drilling experiment was considered a success, despite the fact that the spacecraft had to shut down prematurely due to issues with its landing. That's because it was able to collect samples that were more pristine than anything else that had come back from deep space before or since. In the case of Psyche, drilling into the asteroid could reveal a layered structure that shows how it formed over time. This would provide valuable insight into how planetesimals grow and evolve. Plus, if the sample turns out to be metallic, then we might have a piece of the early solar system in our hands, literally. Scientists are hopeful that the sample will contain minerals that preserve evidence of the intense heat and pressure that existed during the formation of the solar system. By studying these minerals, we could learn more about the conditions that led to the formation of the Earth and other rocky planets. NASA has a lot riding on this mission, but the agency is confident that the Psyche spacecraft is up to the task. The spacecraft was originally scheduled to launch in July 2022, but it faced several delays due to technical problems and the COVID pandemic. The launch was further delayed after engineers realized that a piece of protective tape had been left on the side of the spacecraft, which could interfere with the sensor. But after months of investigation, NASA decided to proceed with launch anyway. They say that they believe the spacecraft can withstand the forces involved in launching it to deep space despite the missing tape. Either way, Psyche is now set to launch in October 2024. When it does, it will be the first ever mission to return samples from an asteroid in the main belt. It could also be the first step in a larger plan to explore the solar system. NASA is already working on plans for future missions that could build on the success of Psyche. So the next few years are looking bright for space exploration, and we couldn't do any of this without all of your amazing supports. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to learn more about upcoming launches, join our community. And as always, keep looking up. We have a new support page. You can go there to find all of the ways you can support the channel. You can check out our support page by clicking the link in the description below. And we have some awesome tiers and perks, such as submitting questions to our inbox, getting early access to videos and exclusive access to our server, so please check it out. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.